What happens when you put a bunch of co-founders in one room, hit record, and ask the questions nobody dares to ask? Where founders drop the pitch, get real, and go deep. No scripts, no safe answers, just bold opinions, hot takes, and raw expertise. Let's see who agrees and who's ready to defend their truth.
M&A Talks.
What is the biggest mistake founders make after signing the letter of intent?
Too early. As usual, it's happened in their mind because after that night, when they assign this letter, they're thinking, I deserve this price. It happened till the morning of this day when you sign a lawyer. But you can go back or you can grow the price, maybe, but it's very hard to do.
Not actually prove their intent.
The mistake is to sign letter of intent if you are not ready for 100%. The process is usually quite complicated and takes a lot of time. You have to be sure for 100% that you are ready and you have the will to go through this. If you already signed, you have to move forward. But there are some cases, they happen from time to time, when the seller tries to reconsider everything, but it can be too late. This process can be stopped, of course, but you have to go through the signed letter of intent or any other document if they have already been signed, and you may face some losses.
I get it. So it's like the worst mistake that you can make is premature signing the letter of intent.
Yes, for sure.
Then follows the
This
problems.
step is a very responsible step. Yeah.
How do you prepare a company for sale without killing the culture?
I would say like the most crucial thing is to build that culture from the very beginning, but it's an ideal word. Almost zero founders do that because at the beginning you think about mostly how to survive, not about culture or something which goes like further, the further steps. So yeah, this might be challenging. To be short, once again, from the very beginning, put your team together as a team of like-minded people, and then you can definitely even rebuild your culture if needed. If team is not on the same page, not sharing the same goals and vision, you
The
most
culture is
likely
killed pretty much already.
Yeah, you most likely will not succeed and will not come to the point when you will about to exit or to go for an M&A.
I don't have exact answer because this is really complicated. If you sell your company, you have to be as honest as possible with the people who work for you. Of course, with regards to the confidential requirements. Because when new owner comes, in the end, that's him who decides how the company will live, how the company will work, what the culture will be. The current owner often stays with the company for some time, but he is not the king anymore. Right. So that's why you have to be honest. You have to warn the people if it's possible, and you have to be with them.
We can back to a few Hollywood pictures. If you know of Beauty, it's 1993. Julia Roberts.
Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman.
Yes,
Yeah,
of
Pretty
course.
Woman. The main hero killing a company in M&A. Yeah,
I don't remember that. I remember the part where
Yeah.
she was a prostitute and then she had a happy ending with him. This is what I remember.
Yeah,
at
but
the
he
beautiful
from
restaurant.
M&A market.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I have to watch it. Okay.
Before, when he met her, he killing a company
Oh my God.
by dividing. Not to kill a culture, to understood what the culture was. It was rooted. It was a culture just internally because it based one person, or it based like for all flow which are in a company. That's why you'll see you kill it or not. But if you kill it, it can be influence for your metrics.
Is EMI license the best option for FinTech?
AMI license is one of the best options. But to determine if it's the best, especially for you, we have to have more context. Because with this license, you are able to do a lot of things. You are able to make this license the core of your project because it's scalable, it's reputable, and widely recognizable. Yeah, especially if you talk about European Union issued EMI license. But I cannot say that this is the only option. Yeah. because it depends on your project, it depends on your plans, on your expansion, on the regions where you work. You are still able to build a strong, powerful structure even without EMI license.
There is a way out even if you don't have that. Okay.
Yes, in any case.
There is different kind of license. Who heard, who think about EMI must understood respond, because there is like MSB license in US, in Canada. Different type of PI license in LATAM market. Argentina, Chile, Mexico. We have some cases in Mexico. Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia. So much kind of license which you can use for your clients. But EMI, it's another type of license where you have more response. And it's mostly regulated in Europe plus UK.
Europe, UK is
too complicated
okay.
when you're not ready for it, but you can structure it more cheaper, faster, to be validate your idea before you get MI. But it's one of step of your growth. Back to story of Revolut, they start from just PSD type of, then they update to PI after MI, and now they have to bank license.
Not really. It's the common misconception. Lots of people are thinking so, and very lots of clients are coming over to us with that request, but I would say like half of the times we're finding them the other solution, which is even more financial, optimal for them. Lots of, benefits you can get out without the proper EMI, but with different kinds of licenses. This is just the most common option and like the most, famous, I would say,
right,
option.
Right. Microregulations, good or bad?
If you are a regulator, then good. Yeah. If you are the one who works under this regulation, that's not really. To be honest, it's good for the consumers, because now they are more protected. Mm-hmm. The issue was, and still is, that prior to MiCA, the regulation was not that improved, good, strict, so anyone was able to enter the market easily. We talk not about the good projects, because easy enter is good to develop business. But if you're some fraudster, scammer, that is easy for you as well, and suffers
where danger lies.
The consumers. Yeah. So with MiCA, you have to adapt. If you run or are going to run the serious project with good financing, with team, with some core, with some values, then you will adapt. You will apply for MiCA license, or you will find some other way. But you will have still to attract some investment and to be ready to spend some time, efforts to do that.
Mostly good, but bad for some particular companies, I would say. Not bad is a word, but difficult, It's good for the end customer because it's aimed to, clear the market, to make you protected, your crypto assets protected from any sorts of scams and everything. So the intention is good.
The intention is good.
Implementation might be challenging.
For owners current of type of sub-license or license are really bad. Market change in Europe and will change more because not all country updated for the main regulatory of MiCA. Updating of legislation by countries coming, but it's good to have some alternative license. Huge Gibraltar, UK, Argentina, Australia, which combines the same like Canada MSB license, e-wallet and crypto asset and exchange. Australia can be the same, very good for good price. How to work in Europe? Just find a partner who updated the MiCA legislation and just find your benefit margin between what you sell for your client for what price, and you will update.
Here's the solution. RBA in Canada, is this the end of Canadian MSB market?
As we know it, yes. It will be completely transformed. From September 2025 on, it will no longer exist in the form we know it today. But it's not particularly the bad news. First, you can always have an options. You can always have another options, or you can always have an options to still exist in Canadian market, but following new regulations over there.
We'll see. As usual, any kind of market have different stages of growth. Like maybe we're on the finish line of bullish market. Maybe will be some bear market in Canada, but maybe
Just maybe.
something changes. Yeah, but still tuned, be updated by Canada new legislation and regulation.
At some point, yes, but it's not the end of the market. Let's say it's the end of Wild West. Yeah, because like in Europe with MICA, quite the same in Canada. Now it's easy. The entry level is quite low, so everyone can do this. A lot of licenses, a lot of businesses, good ones, bad ones. With new regulation, it will be more difficult.
The easiest fiat and crypto license to acquire in 2025, 2026.
Yeah, that's somehow connected to the previous question
Exactly.
because it was Canadian, obviously. Everybody knows that. But now, after it's going to be transformed, it will be no longer as easy as it was before. It will be challenging. So I would say, I don't know if it's popular opinion or not, but I would say Australian is might be surprising, but I have a feeling, my personal feeling, that this will be the new Canada.
All right. I want to discuss this further on in the panel, not right now.
If you prepare as usual, you go to hiking in high mounts like K2 or Everest, maybe yes, will be prepared. I recommend to wait maybe 1+ year to see how legislation will be implemented, and maybe there will be easier. As I mentioned previously, better to find guys who updated already by MiCA legislation, and we have a few clients on the platform which help you to operate in this market through them.
Now it's Canada, MSB license in Canada.
M&A talks.
Okay, gentlemen, another pleasant evening in your company and the company of me, truly yours. So now that all the questions are on the table, let's get into what really matters. How different were your answers, and especially why were they different? In this panel, just to remind you guys, we're going to break down the gaps, the contradictions, and see beyond the surface, look at the strategy and the psychology, because as far as I understood in M&A, how you think is just as important as what you do. Correct me if I'm wrong.
100%.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see where you guys align and where you're ready to challenge each other. So
Yeah, let's find out.
the first question that I asked you today was, what is the biggest mistake founders make after signing the letter of intent, also known as LOI? This was the one and only question where pretty much you were agree. You mentioned the premature signing, there is no way back, and this is like the biggest mistake that you can make. Do this too soon. Here, I don't think you have anything to add pretty much.
If
no?
you have a penalty in a law, you can all times keep the deal. If yes, you must calculate it what the amount of benefit you can get it from another letter of intent.
See, the psychological
But it's not a
portrait
recommendation.
of each and every one of you is being like shaped and drawn more vividly within every episode of ours. You seem to me as more like a trickster. You're like the guy who always finds his way around, and he always knows his benefits. Where's the best place to stay? What's the best license to acquire?
For client too. For client
and
too.
this is amazing. Dan has shown himself as an educational master. He's been like giving me lections that I actually enjoyed to understand the field better. I honestly have a hard time describing what kind of person you are, except for you're like a guy who gets the chills of this game, of the process. You're like an addict of this whole field, right?
Pretty much it.
Yeah. You know people, you know relationships, you know how to build a rapport with people, even with me. You're like the soul, you're the emotions of the...
I would like to think so as well. Yeah, I don't think that's bad. That's pretty good.
Awesome.
I have a question in that regard from what you've seen so far. Do we miss something in this circle? Do we need to add something, or we can cover pretty much everything you need?
There is even a question of missing out on something. I'm just discovering, and it's like an iceberg. The more I dive into, the more I see. So I don't think we're missing out on anything. It's just we hadn't had the opportunity to see the other sides of you. And the questions help to invoke this energy to see other dimensions of you. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. We're working on it.
M&A talks.
Moving on. I ask you guys, how do you prepare a company for sale without killing the culture? And here is where opinions diverged. So Dan said that you can avoid killing the culture through honesty, transparency, and being there on the same length with your team. Igor shared pretty much the same mindset. He said that you need to build a well-defined team with the same core values, objectives, and you can rebuild it later if needed. Ihor said a lot of things. I have to
As usual.
He actually came up with this interesting analogy. Apparently, one of the movies that I enjoy called Pretty Woman with Julia Roberts, where she played a prostitute. Richard Gere, who played the main character, he apparently killed the company by dividing it.
Yeah.
This is what happened. This is not what I saw in the movie, obviously.
It's not the last one film. Yeah, there is a couple of, which is the same main hero on the M&A market, make it something around that market.
Later, after you finished sharing this analogy, you said that to avoid killing the culture, you need to define it, you need to shape it, you need to understand what it is. Then
Correct.
Not
Correct.
Okay.
As I said before, the main issue here is when you sell the company, you are not longer able to influence it. So the buyer, he will overtake this role, and you cannot guarantee anything to the people who work with you now.
That sounds
Just
really painful.
transparency. Yes. So your power ends after you sign the agreement and after everything is finished, unless you stay as an important part of new team. But usually this not last long, just during the transition period.
Raw reality hits.
Yes.
But it's not always that way.
Not
Like
always.
there are different cases, but quite often.
Want to add it that very depend of the amount of staff in the company and core team. If we talk about early stage, or is it 12 till 25, and you know that the culture built around 2 person or one, yeah, it's can be a problem. But staff and personality are not a part of asset which you buy. It just only they wish stay or not stay with you, with your culture, with your target and your own roadmap. But the main important when you buy a bigger company, mostly no matter how build it internally culture, by policy, by some entertainment, etc. It's another quality of assets which you buy. That's why maybe their culture not so related to asset, but it's like a part of asset.
I'm learning so much with you guys.
M&A talks.
Is EMI license the best option for FinTech? Here's where the opinions diverged again.
Diverse?
Slightly. Okay.
I can't believe
There was
that.
no radical statement.
Let's check.
All right. Sorry. Yeah,
Let's
let's go.
take cards on
Okay.
the table.
In our next episodes, you should bet on who said what.
Wow, all right. Yeah, we
Answers?
commanded slide update. Yeah, all right.
Right.
M&A poker. Yeah.
So Dan said that it's one of the best options for FinTech, but it's not the only one. Ihor said that no, there is a huge variety of licenses like PI license, MSB in the US and Canada. It's just a step of growth.
Yeah,
as you said.
it's a step of growth. Am just a step of growth? But it's not
It's
the
not.
best step where you more started.
No, because it's just one of the most popular ones.
Famous, I
one
would
of the-
say. Yeah.
When you're in very cool meeting and everybody talk about Amy, no matter how they call, most of clients not fully understand the responsibility which came after own it such type of license.
Yeah.
It's
Lots of
similar like
people are
bank.
honestly unprepared for it. Neither the teams, neither themselves, they're not prepared for handling it. It's like really difficult.
I'm afraid of being called boring
No.
again. Yeah.
No.
Not today.
nobody's gonna say.
But to recommend something, you shall check everything first. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
As a good
That's
doctor,
true.
yeah.
Yeah.
You have to understand what the client needs, because, like Ihor said, everyone wants to have an AMI, but not everyone understands
What it is.
what that really means and what other options they can use. Sometimes cheaper, sometimes less accountability, and so on. That's why this is not the only option. This is not the best option. Actually, there is no best option because it greatly depends on what you do, where you do this.
Yeah, and this is the significant part of our job, to explain the options, explain the opportunities, the responsibilities, and all that sort of stuff.
Clients, as usual, must start it from the basis point, what they want to bring to the market and what's the kind of market, what region or country. I mean B2B, B2C, and region, and what the budget they have.
Yeah,
Personal,
from that point.
own funds, maybe some investment structure of funds which can came to the assets which they buy. That's why they understand what the type of asset better, because they might not so cheap to buy, too long incorporate, and so much requirements around owners, money, source of funds, source of wealth, etc.
Sounds like it's a good fit for some mastodons of the market.
If you want to be a mastodon, you shall buy a bank. Yeah.
No, I mean, Julius says that it suits more for the big players. The EMI is for the big players. So yeah, it's pretty
Not
much
as
so.
usual. It depended
I
on
would
your
say so.
responsibility. No.
You're so good aligned here, but you just ruined it.
That's not the whole point of this, to be aligned in everything. I love the challenging perspective here.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Allow yourself to then.
I guess he's a bit jealous that we tell a lot of wise things. Yeah.
Yes.
It's not always that easy to handle.
Yeah, I agree. maybe.
A very healthy
Maybe.
competition there.
M&A talks.
Okay, moving on. Microregulation is good or bad? Dan put it very eloquently. He said it's good for regulators, it's good for customers, but it's not good for us, pretty much.
For client who own.
Yes. You said, Eicher, that it's really bad. Not all countries updated for the main regulatory of MIC. So it's good to have alternative license. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's really hard to
100%.
keep up with the flow of thoughts.
A
that
current
pouring
owner must
from-
be ready if they want to play this game with regulatory and they understand that the market enough amount of client. Yeah, they must be in the market. But it's maybe not so easy for most of players in European market today, but possible as usual.
Igor said that the intention of microregulations was good, but the implementation was something that is bleeding.
Maybe not bleeding so much.
No, I wouldn't say that to that extent. But yeah, the intention is good, obviously. I'm pretty much aligned with what you said then. In this case, yeah, it's really good for the end customer. It's gonna protect them, and yeah, it's good for the regulators itself. And it's quite challenging for us as a players in M&A market and for our customers who are the owners of the licenses to get through this process. It can be really challenging. I cannot say that it's bad, but challenging.
That's true.
Drop the microphone now.
M&A talks.
RPA in Canada, is this the end of Canadian MSB market? Not the end. We will see there are different stages of growth. Maybe it's definitely the transformation of the market. Avoiding to say the end of the
market
end
as
of the
we
market.
know it today.
Yes.
So here we are on the same page.
Not really.
To be honest, I told that this is the end of Wild West.
Yes.
But it's not the end of the market.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I said as well. Yeah, it's the end of the market as we know it right now.
know it today, yeah.
So yeah, it will be completely different.
How do you feel about that?
Good as usual. I'm always feeling good. Once again, but lots of people who are still owning and who want to enter the market with Canadian MSB license, which is very, very popular. It's like more than 3,000 active Canadian licenses out there still operating. They might feel disgusted. They might feel like confused what to do next and everything. But there are always the options. You can always be aligned with their regulators or go to some other jurisdiction if you will. Call me. I'll tell you how.
His number will be down. Like online shops.
M&A talks.
Last but not least, the easiest fiat and crypto license to acquire in 2025. Canada MSB, I heard said that we need to wait a year and a half plus and see, unless you really want to gamble with it.
We talk about MICA.
Igor suggested that Australian license is something to look forward to acquire in 2025, 2026. How do you guys feel about that?
Why nobody said that?
Australia was in my topic, but I don't remember. I don't remember what the kind of answer was. Much
I was
worse.
not in position to go against Canada because I was afraid that would offend you. You as a governor of Canada,
Not
president.
official.
Yes,
Yet.
because this is independent country, yeah? But
Yeah.
still.
We will find all-time new market for some Wild West for some period. But what we saw from previous year, all-time regulation somewhere came already, and some are in a mixed position of which we will see in MIC for next 2 years. Yeah, because for today, we're not 100% surely where will be correct jurisdiction to get it updated. Yeah, because some of our clients came from Baltic region to find Poland, something in Spain, France, Ireland, etc. Maybe it can be interesting too. But everything depended by the liability of regulatory institute, which will be more open for conversation with new attendant of market in their country. But MICA will be related to all countries by the same way, but the persons who work in institutions very important.
Not all the countries,
by the
just
culture.
European Union countries.
Yeah. I mean,
It's just the thing, like for those who not understand still, if somebody is not understanding us, in this year, there are the two big changes in the market, the biggest markets. In Europe Union, the microregulations, in Canada, RPAA regulations. So they will reshape the infrastructure as we know it today. But these processes were happening before, like in Lithuania, we saw it a few years ago. It was like a Wild West once, then it reshaped.
First it was Estonia.
Estonia before. So yeah, we saw it. And these processes are happening time after time with some periodically. So it's for those who can be afraid right now, they shouldn't, because it's always happening, and there are always the ways to go through and to stay in the market and to continue their operations, serving the clients and everything. But at the end of the day, what you need is to give the proper service to your clients. That's it.
If you know, there was Benny Hill show, when everyone was running. Now it's the same on the market.
It's a very vivid metaphor.
M&A talks.
I've just had an insight. Instead of me giving my non-expertise summary to this talk that we had today, how about the three of you share some insight, some piece of advice, or whatever you feel like, inspired by today's talk, or just refer to our viewers and share some bits of your wisdom.
About what?
Well, about anything that we discussed today, for example. What would everybody, pay attention to today? What is the thing that is of significant value?
Basically,
maybe just advice to, hey, just, I don't know, go to our platform and
go to the gym and do some exercises. That's always the good choice. But I mean, we are just an experts in financial M&As. That's a narrow niche, narrow market, and we can just give advices about that, right?
We're here to educate.
The advice is always the same. I mean, focus on your clients, focus on your team, on what you're doing day by day, and try to do this as good as possible, and you will succeed everywhere. For all the other issues, there we are. You know how to find us.
But not all succeeded.
Then, there's still some options, but that is the way. That's from my side.
That's good.
You guys, go ahead.
With regards to what has been said, my advice is to not try to find a magic pill, because there is no. There are some good solutions. You have your business model, your customers. Just be wise and don't try to make everything just fast. Because if you are really in good business and you want to work long term, your structure has to be solid. And here we can help.
God, I trust
One
him.
lesson.
We all do.
Yeah.
What about you, man?
Take your idea, go to market, validate it, find your market fit. After you came to our platform, find different educational skills of a market of FinTech and banking. Review a market price if you want to buy something, or to review from a deadlines of establish some kind of license, because the second step will be to get this license after market fit validation. AMI license can be applicable for 70% only in the moment of a good growth. That's why it's not like a solution. As Dan mentioned, it's not like a pillow which save your life or save your business. There is different tricky things which are on the market, and the main thing which I can advise, find a good expert, review different opinions, and came to our platform. You will see more information about this market, because as Igor mentioned, in a very small market in M&A, but with huge expertise, which free, open it, welcome.
There is the smartest advice to go to our platform.
It's not the only thing that he said, but I already feel inspired. I don't know what about our viewers, but Guys, listen to this man. They're here for a reason, right? So yeah, here we are at the end of our third episode of our M&A talks. I think it went amazing. I can wait for more. So thank you for participating. Thank you for watching, and thank me for hosting, Julia.
Thank you for
Thank you.
hosting.